Flying Legends 2015 opens. Endurance on the fuel quantity in the Messerschmitt 109 was so low that most of the German fighters, escort fighters, were not able to stay above south of England for a long time, so they would leave the bombers on their own, and but nevertheless the ratio putting, and now coming from the left, the big engine one. Some people will tell you that who cares?
Well, yes. Our Lord and Master, Stephen Gray, is of the opinion they make no significant difference.
When you're doing 250 miles per hour in bumpy air. Pilots from the Griffons are Scofield, Lewis, Smith and Christophe Jacquard. Over an hour long, and it's very quiet in the room, and everybody is listening, then it's all about flight safety to sum it up.
There's Paul Bonham there in the Mark 9. Give him a wave, he's pretty tied up with looking where he's going. The X-ray Hangar aircraft, still owned by the old Flying Machine Company.
A trio of high-speed round engines. Cockpit were designed at the beginning of the war.
Same carriage, same load as the B-7.
Same load. And again, the Japanese called it the whistling death of the Pacific. Again, this was the first fighter where you had armrests, and you even had a little recess to put your pack of cigarettes and your Zippo in it. They didn't know that smoking was dangerous.
The Mark 1, the FU-1, is flown by Keith Skilling, and we reckon that Keith is the highest hours Corsair pilot
In the world today.
Yeah.
And finally the Tomcat. Oh. 36 or Hawk and 2 P-40s. Wow. Propeller cone. Here come the short ones. French colors, Battle of France 1940. And here come the P-40s. The silver P-36 of France, and then in Morocco, in Casablanca for instance, it was with the Lafayette squadron there. And this aircraft is the only survivor of World War II wearing the French roundels. French Air Force, we survived the war, and this is it. Even Spielberg, and here they come. On this project. And when the aircraft flew, it was equipped with for instance, Fred uses for this aerobatic demo, uses very conservative engine settings with the skies. This is one of the sexiest aircraft which ever flew. With Lorsnes from Norwegian, is a Norwegian, yeah, Norwegian Woods. And Léon Matisse from France is flying Mustang 3. And Fred Acari from France again is flying this one. 12 is the silver and blue one. Thousand crew members were lost by the American Air Force during the war in Europe. 40,000, that's quite a population.
Well, Sally B flies as a living memorial to 70
protected.
Well, Sally B is a B-17G. She's gone on the UK and European airshow circuit for an astounding 40 years. Brought to the UK by Ted White and Ellie Sangbo, who carry out extensive as founders of the big Warbirds airshows in Europe. She started the Great Warbirds airshow, which ran for 13 years at West Malling. Moved later, now she's running her smoke as a tribute to all the members of the B-17 Preservation Club. Being flown beautifully this afternoon by Peter Kuipers.
Le Benz.
That's a sight that the B-17 pilots would not have liked to have.
Some of them started flying military aircraft in 1939, and in 1945, still alive, they were still flying military aircraft. How, with such a noise, the engine doesn't blow itself apart on its own? Listen. Without having the engine coughing and stopping. Listen again. The Messerschmitt was at the were canted, and the wheels were not perpendicular to the ground, and so on landing and takeoff the aircraft would easily swerve one way or the other. That this is your coffin which is being for some of them going to Middle East, for instance, and flying these kind of kites. They were calling them kites. And a few years later, they were all involved into what we call the Battle of Britain, and this is it.
But that's a sight to gladden.
Characteristics in the cockpit, for instance, there were knobs and levers located in such a way that you ended up doing big mistakes, but look at that. Fly the Bullfighter, they would fly the Mosquitoes, and later again they would fly the Canberra. But, and that's purely British. These light bombers, they called them light bombers, but in fact they were heavy fighting machines. They were used during the 1939, 1940. They were the main frame of the bomber command. The big 4 engines machine had not appeared yet. The Hurricane Solo and the 3 Mark 1s. And Trevor is really having a fit. Is that 9 only? I'm sorry. Well, it's not that bad. This looks like one of the sun rays coming down obliquely through the picture, and a trio of Spitfires turning. We have it for real. It's not an archive. It's for real. One of the 3s. Roy Grumman was a tough-minded engineer from New York who, in fact, had started as a naval engineer, and but very soon he turned his mind. This was during World War I. He turned his mind to aviation and decided he was going to build aircraft for the navies, which was strange. The big, very British gentleman, and probably one of the greatest pilots of all time, his name is Eric Brown. And Eric Brown started as a fighter pilot flying exactly the same machine as this one. If you've it's a superb aircraft. It's squared off everywhere. There's this big round shoulder. It looks like a pregnant guppy. Navy with the martlets found out that the Wildcats could be very, very, very efficient against the German aircraft. And of course with pilots like Eric Brown, he was gifted. This was the end of it. 4-piston engine, high-speed fighting machine. The aircraft carriers of the era. The Australian Air Force used them during the Korean War. Hence the colors and a jet. But you had to match the performance of the jet in terms of speed, ability. And this monster has it all. People who fly the Sea-Fury are all saying the same thing. It's astounding. Slow speed to high speed. It has a range of basic flying machine. Two-seater, one in front, one in the back. Only one instrument panel in the front. So when you fly it solo, you fly it from the back and you look over the front seat. You look at the French fighting aviation during World War II, even if the leading one is which had results in terms of air superiority. It was the first half-time when the Battle of Britain started. The Luftwaffe was nearly 1/4 diminished. Its force was diminished by 1/4, and so probably this was of some importance in the way. Historically, very, very, very important, even for our lives today. So the French pilots during that period of 1940, a historic aircraft based in a magnificent hangar in Salzburg called Hangar 7, which is a museum where you have these beautiful flying machines kept. The B-25 was designed one more from a French request. So the B-25 started life as a medium-sized bomber, and it's a beautiful aircraft. It's to the movies you've seen Pearl Harbor, and you know what happened to even if it's Hollywood style, you know what happened afterwards. You finally fell in love with it. Well, of course it's true of most aircraft, but this is the one I want if I have the money. That's a engine, hence the strange sound, very American muffled sound. It's a fighter flown not through a stick, but through a wheel. So it's a big aircraft. It's complicated, it's Lockheed. Lockheed never made. And Sandex was flying the same aircraft when he disappeared on the 31st of July 1944 for during a recon mission